My racial self would never allow this, but my fat self concedes, gives up. I don't think any middle-class person, woman in this country can be fat and happy. Despite the worthy efforts of fat acceptance crusaders, I don't believe they've made a dent in this culture's prejudice against fat people. Oh, you can love your life, have a great job and great friends, a wonderful marriage or partnership, but fat and happy? Not likely. Ask Jenny Craig, the Diet Center, Weight Watchers, Overeaters Anonymous. Consider the hundreds of women who would rather expose themselves to the risks of dangerous drugs than to be fat. Middle-class America, black and white, won't let you be fat and happy, and I resent it. I resent the ways in which I feel compelled to capitulate to someone else's standard of health and beauty. There are actually studies that suggest one can be fat and healthy, end quote. This was an amazing chapter for me to read. Margaret brought up a lot of much-needed reflections to talk about. I'm very curious about how often I see veganism and vegetarianism advocacy centered on a great way to lose weight. It's actually always bothered me, and I wonder why it has been normalized that thinness is normal for everyone and that being skinny is a good health reason for engaging in veganism. Honestly, how is healthy defined? Who defines it? We all know that there are many cultures outside of white middle-class America that do not perceive a thin body as healthy or beautiful. I'm very concerned about how veganism is advocated if it is still founded upon white, Eurocentric, middle-class standards of morality, health, and beauty. I'm just thinking out loud here, as Margaret's article really touched me. I practice very hard not to be judgmental of body types. I, too, often have to check myself and make sure I'm not falling into the land of isms when I talk about the vegan lifestyle and my perceptions of health with everyone. I always tell people, well, everyone is unique and whole foods veganism has worked for me. However, I have seen many vegan and vegetarian people become judgmental toward female vegans and vegetarians who are not thin. They can be harsh and prejudiced in a way that actually parallels racism. This really bothers me. After all, there are plenty of thin vegan ladies who are extremely unhealthy. Anyway, ladies, I just want to share this with you and see what your take is on this. Remember, we can all have a friendly dialogue about this. You do not have to agree with me. I just hope we all can understand that on this Yahoo group, we can all agree to disagree. Hugs, Breeze. So the next entry is from a woman's username named Nakilocks. And she says, Breeze, it's funny you would bring up this subject. I recently had a conversation about this subject that brought me to tears of frustration. I am a 12 to 14 in size. This petite sister butted into a conversation I was having with another sister about vegetarianism and veganism. She said, being a vegetarian is not healthy because all you can eat is carbs and they make you gain weight. Of course, she said this while looking me up and down. Then she started giving me advice about how she eats cottage cheese, string cheese for snacks, chicken breasts, etc. Then she said in a condescending tone, this is why I look the way I look. I weigh 122 pounds and I am in my 40s. Whoop-de-doo, good for you, I said to her. And then I responded, for my body type, your weight would be unrealistic and probably unhealthy too. So instead of focusing on my weight, I am focusing on health, and veganism works for me. End quote. We went back and forth with a few indirect catty insults to each other. She was calling me fat in a roundabout way. I glorified the African in my hourglass figure. She tried to say that men don't like all of that. I said that brothers don't like flat asses and no curves. I hate that fact that I have to resort to petty insults, especially with another sister, in order to defend my size and my lifestyle. But it seems as if I run into that type of BS often, and quite frankly, I am sick of it. If the subject comes up that I'm vegan, I notice the first thing that people do is to look me up and down. I see the doubt in their eyes and their tone of voices. If one more person says some comment like, quote, I tried to be a vegetarian but I gained weight, or I heard that this can make you gain weight, I'm going to scream. I know I shouldn't take it personally, but sometimes I feel as if they are directing those comments to me. A family member once asked me why I'm not eating meat, and I said, to be healthier. And he cut me off and said, you are far from the perfect picture of health. That hurt. It's hard not to take it personally when people are constantly undermining you, trying to make a mockery of you based on some blanket perception of health. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that smaller vegan sisters have to engage in these types of conversations. Anyway, I will stop my ranting now. I don't want to turn this into a woe is me conversation, but I'm in total agreement with the author. While I have a much healthier body image than I used to, it's not always that easy to feel good about yourself in this society, even when you're doing the right thing. And I didn't want to read the whole chapter because there's a lot of entries, but I wanted to share actually my own personal experience with body image and perceptions of me either being too skinny or not healthy or skinny and beautiful. So as you can see, I identify as an African-American woman, and I grew up in a household where, in my father's perception, a woman with probably 30 more pounds on me is ideal for him in terms of a woman being healthy and beautiful. So ever since I lost a considerable amount of weight, my father has constantly told me that I look horrible and that I look unhealthy, and he's actually said something as hurtful as you look like you want out of a concentration camp, which is kind of messed up. But in his perception, he thoroughly believes that skinny just does not look healthy on anybody, and he feels that despite me curing all of my health ailments and never having any health problems that I can think of after going through my wound cleansing regimen, he still doesn't make the connection that for me this body type is right for me. Then alternatively, when I visited my Dartmouth College alma mater, dog barking distracted me. When I visited Dartmouth College on my reunion, I had interesting responses. The 6 black women that were there aren't many people at Dartmouth in the 90s, but the 6 black female alum that were there commented on how I was too skinny, and they joked and said, you need to eat some food, you need to eat some meat on your bones. Then I noticed that my white peers congratulated me for losing weight and that I looked beautiful. So it was kind of interesting and confusing, but also kind of verified the reports and data out there that collectively white middle class have a completely different understanding of healthy and beauty as opposed to black collectivity. So that was something that is part of my own dissertation work, where I'm just trying to understand, how is it being socialized as white versus being socialized as black in this country? How does that create conflicts and challenges when it comes to veganism and vegan praxis and animal rights? And I wanted to bring up that this book has a lot of different chapters about animal rights, but also eco-sustainability, and then critical reflection, like I said, on what does it mean to be a black woman and practice veganism. And for many black women, the way they entered it was through actually the fact that they realized, like me, they had wound health issues. And for my dissertation work, I'm trying to figure out why there's this conflict that if I do go online to see or to participate in forums about veganism, why is that I see a clearer distinction that those who identify as white middle class want the animal rights part to be priority first. And then when I go on Soul Veg Folk or Queen of Fu online, why is it the black demographic there collectively want to do health disparities activism first using a plant-based diet? And I've had an interesting challenge just doing this work, fusing critical race theory, which is the theory that race is central to America since the inception of the concept of race and colonialization 500 years ago. So I'm a critical race theorist, so I take very seriously that much of what occurs in the United States, race is central to, like you just can't leave it. And when I did a call for papers for Sistah Vegan in 2006, there was a thread on veganporn.com, which has nothing to do with porn, but someone had posted my call for papers, and immediately it was very controversial because someone on the forum was, actually several people on the forum were incredibly upset that when I proposed it, I was looking for black women that were using veganism for health and health activism. And people were annoyed that I said Sistah, and there was this disgust that I'm using black English and not standard white English. And then there was disgust that I'm focusing on a racial group. And it was about 40 pages long of people just basically bashing the concept or even the thought that, well, actually being racialized in a racist society could actually produce different ways of viewing veganism. So I ended up doing a discursive analysis of this forum, and it ended up being my master's thesis to really understand how covert whiteness operates amongst white-identified vegans. I may not even realize that they're performing whiteness. And on the forum, you can see that people are identifying, you know, I'm a white vegan, and this is how I feel. I live in Canada. I'm a white vegan, and I live in Germany. And they all seem to be not connecting to why it's important to not think that you live in a post-racial society, but to actually have a color consciousness around not just veganism, but anything you engage in. So that was an interesting challenge that I actually turned into a thesis.